Does your advisor have any specialties? Do they focus on a certain area? My specialty is people that are within 5 years of retiring, helping them plan for retirement. Maybe you're searching out someone who helps with college planning or estate planning, different areas. You definitely want to know what the specialty of your advisor is, and you want to seek one out who's going to be knowledgeable in those various areas.
Are you ready for a successful retirement? We're addressing the topics facing today's retirees. Welcome to Retire with Ryan. Now here's your host, Ryan Morrissey.
Welcome back. Today is episode number 10. I've made it to 10 episodes. So in honor of our 10th episode, and in light of a recent article I read in the local newspaper, I want to refer back to a blog post that I did earlier this year on the top 10 interview questions when hiring a financial advisor. And why I'm referring back to this is because this article that I read was referring to a local advisor in Connecticut who is accused of stealing over $300,000 from one of his clients. And this advisor grew up in the same town that I did and on the same street that I grew up on. So I hate when I read stories like this, and this isn't the only one that you could find. These appear at least a few times a year. I'm reading these in the local paper, and I read a lot of industry publications specific for financial advisors, and there's more of these cases going on. And I hate to see this. Number one, because it causes such harm to the individual who this crime is perpetrated upon, and sometimes they're able to get their money back, sometimes they're not. But it also puts a stain on the profession that I love. And so I'd like to take you through the article that I wrote previously, which will be linked in the show notes, to help you try to avoid this thing from happening to you. And by going through this top 10 questions, if you were to ask your advisor these, I think you can avoid and possibly even eliminate altogether being ripped off by your financial advisor. So question number one is, are you a fiduciary and a fee-only firm? So what is a fiduciary? Well, a fiduciary means that your advisor is acting in your best interest, and they're acting as if they were making recommendations for themselves, how they would treat their own money. And believe it or not all advisors are required to be fiduciaries. You would think that that would be the requirement, but it's not. There's two types of advisors, and I use the term advisor loosely because one is really not an advisor. There are financial advisors who are registered as fiduciaries. They generally have a Series 65 license. That's what I am. And then there are brokers. And brokers are not fiduciaries. Brokers act in the interest of the firm that they represent, and they're there to facilitate a transaction, buying or selling of a stock, buying or selling of life insurance, an annuity, whatever the investment is, and they're not held to fiduciary standard. So a lot of times when you read about these cases where, bad advice was given, many times it's perpetrated by a broker. So one thing you can do to avoid these conflicts that brokers have is that you can seek out to work with a fiduciary. The second thing regarding that is you can work with someone who is a fee-only advisor, part of a fee-only firm. And what that means is that that firm doesn't accept any commissions. And there's actually the ability where an advisor can be licensed as a broker and a registered investment advisor, a fee-based advisor, but that creates some conflicts. And I was actually, for many years, a duly registered advisor, meaning that I was a broker and a fee-based advisor. But after many years, I decided that really wasn't where I thought the future of the business was going, and I decided to relinquish both my broker license and my insurance license earlier this year so that I could solely be a fee-only advisor to be in the best position to help my clients. So one way you can know this is you can ask your advisor straight out whether they are, or you can refer to what's called their ADV. Every fee-only advisor or fee-based advisor has a document that they're supposed to provide to you, which is called an advisory disclosure document. And within that document is a lot of good information. It talks about the services that the advisor provides. It talks about the fees that they charge. It talks about what credentials or licenses they have, any conflicts that exist. So you definitely want to make sure that you review that document anytime you're hiring an advisor to understand any potential conflicts that exist. So number 2 is, do you have any disclosures or complaints? So any disclosure or complaint needs to be reported, and that would be listed on the advisor's ADV. Or if you're still going to work with someone who's a broker, there's a website that you should refer to. It's called BrokerCheck, brokercheck.com. And if you go to that website, you can very easily type in the name of any advisor. And if they have any complaints or any disclosures are things like bankruptcies, that will be right on that website, and it will be on the report that's listed. So additionally, when you look up an advisor, if they're just a fee-only advisor, you'd go to advisorinfo.sec.gov. That's where you can find a firm's ADV if it's not readily accessible on the firm's website. On my website, my ADV is listed there. Additionally, we provide it to clients when we begin a relationship. And if someone is also licensed just as an insurance agent, you can also go to the insurance commissioner's website of that state to make sure that they're actively licensed there. So by going through this, if you see a history of complaints, if you see disclosures, those are definitely red flags that there's issues with this advisor, and you might want to think twice about working with them. Next is, does that advisor have any specific certifications? So to become either a broker or a fee-only advisor, there's a test for each. And the test probably to be a fee-only advisor would take most people about a month of studying to be able to pass. To be a broker, it's a little larger exam, maybe 2 months. And that's it. After that, you're licensed and you have the ability to manage someone's life savings. So because of that, many advisors seek out additional training and knowledge through various financial designations that one can pursue. The one that's regarded as the most comprehensive and the most thorough is the Certified Financial Planning Designation, CFP. And for this exam, it takes most people a couple years to actually study and pass the various courses and then sit for the final exam and take it. The exam itself has roughly a 60% pass rate, so it is a rather difficult exam given over a couple days, and you also have to have 3 years of experience in the industry to be able to use the CFP marks. So if you are looking for an advisor, you probably want to work with one who's a certified financial planner. Another really important thing about the Certified Financial Planning Designation is that it requires its advisors to act as a fiduciary at all times. And this is important because if someone is duly registered as an investment advisor and a broker, even if they're working as a broker, they're still required to act as a fiduciary. And there are additional designations, though they're not as rigorous, and they don't require you to act as a fiduciary. They focus on different areas. I have some of these. Some are called, one is a chartered life underwriter dealing with life insurance. Another's a chartered financial consultant. Another one's a chartered mutual fund consultant. And these are definitely valuable to have, but I would say the gold standard is a CFP. If you're looking for a certified financial planner, you can go to cfp.net and you can look up a financial planner in your area. You can also look up a financial planner based on their specialty. And you can also look just for fee-only financial planners there as well. Next is, does your advisor have any specialties? Do they focus on a certain area? My specialty is people that are within 5 years of retiring, helping them plan for retirement. Maybe you're searching out someone who helps with college planning or estate planning, different areas. You definitely want to know what the specialty of your advisor is, and you want to seek one out who's going to be knowledgeable in those various areas, because even though the CFP exam is very comprehensive, there's a lot that it doesn't cover. For example, it doesn't really cover much on Social Security, doesn't cover much on Medicare. And these are very important issues for the specialty that I serve. And these are additional courses that I have taken to increase my knowledge on that, and so have a lot of other advisors based on their specialty. Number 5 is, how are you compensated for your services? So if someone's working with someone on a fee-only basis, they're either going to be compensated one of two ways, either based on an hourly or a flat fee rate, or they're going to be compensated on a percentage of the assets that they're managing for you. So it's definitely important to understand how your advisor's compensated. I offer both services for clients that are just looking for financial planning and they desire to manage their money on their own. We offer fee-based financial planning. For those who are looking for a more comprehensive service, financial planning and investment management, we offer that as well. But it's important to understand how your advisor is compensated. And it's also important to understand if they're getting any additional kickbacks. For example, is your advisor being paid anything from the investments that they recommend? That would definitely be a conflict that you'd want to know. With our firm, we're not paid anything from any of the investments that we recommend. We're only paid based on the financial planning fee or the assets under management fee. Next would be, what other costs will I be charged, right? So if you're working with a fiduciary advisor, one of their obligations is to help you to manage the costs in your portfolio, to make sure that the costs are reasonable and to understand how cost impacts your returns. So you want to understand the investments that your advisor is going to be using, because that's an additional cost that you have. For example, if they're using very high cost mutual funds, that could maybe be a cost that could be better served by being in a lower cost mutual fund, or by using something called an exchange traded fund, which is primarily what we use for our client portfolios because they have a lot lower cost than a traditional mutual fund. Next would be, what is the investment philosophy of the advisor and what are they following? So, they could believe in very active trading, and maybe that generates a lot of commissions that are unnecessary. Maybe they're more aggressive than you want to be. Maybe they're more conservative than you want to be. So you want to understand what their investment philosophy is and make sure that it aligns with what your goals and objectives are. Our investment philosophy for our portfolios that we offer is primarily based on using low-cost index funds, passive investment management, and making tactical shifts in the portfolio to take advantage of opportunities as they present themselves. Next is, and this is really important, this is where a lot of people are able to get ripped off, is number 8. Where do you keep my money and how can I see it? So I'm sure all of you by now have heard of Bernie Madoff, right? He perpetrated a very, very large Ponzi scheme. And the way that he was able to do it for so long is because he had custody of his clients' money. What that meant is that all his clients' funds were in multiple accounts, I don't think it was just one, that his firm controlled. And then his firm would generate statements and send them to the clients, and they would tell the clients what their portfolio was worth based on the holdings that he had. There's major issues with that. He was generating the statements so he could make up whatever numbers he wanted to, and that's what he did. And so to avoid that, you really want to seek out an advisor, an advisory firm that uses an independent third party to custody client funds. So we use our primary custodian as TD Ameritrade. So TD Ameritrade holds all of our clients' money. We're given access to the accounts so that we're able to manage the accounts, but TD is maintaining all the books and records to tell our clients what the accounts are worth from an independent basis so that we're not able to do anything funny, right? We're not able to take out money out of your account without your authorization. And that's what you really want to find. So I mentioned earlier about the article of the local advisor who stole money from a client. And the way that he was able to do that, according to the article, is that he set up a joint account with the client. And a joint account gave him 100% access to the funds. And he, over a period of time, withdrew the funds in excess of $300,000, is accused of drawing it down to zero. So when you look at how fraud is perpetrated against clients, generally that's one of the ways that it's done is by having access to the account, where either the person is a trustee of the account or they're a joint owner of the account. So be very careful if you're going to set up someone to give them joint access to your account, an advisor, or even a close friend or family member, or make them trustee of your account. So most advisory firms will never, ever ask, I can understand why they would, to be a joint tenant on an account. Another way that fraud is created on clients is the advisor or the firm will have you write a check directly to them for your investment account, right? It's okay to write a check directly to your firm for fees that you're paying them, but if to open an investment account, you're writing the check directly to them, that's a major red flag. So the check should always be written to whoever your custodian is that firm is using. In our case, TD Ameritrade. So that's how you can avoid that type of fraud being created or perpetrated on you. Next is, how often will you communicate with your advisor? And you definitely want to be communicating with your advisor on a regular basis, at least a couple times per year. If something happens in between those meetings, obviously your advisory firm should be available to you to reach out. But a couple times a year is what we recommend. Those meetings, we take a look at the asset allocation for our clients. We do an update to their financial plan. we talk about tax planning opportunities. This is definitely a big thing that your advisor should be helping you with, is tax planning, because taxes are a very easy way that you can help increase the return on your portfolio by minimizing the taxes that you might unnecessarily be paying. So you want to make sure that your advisor and or possibly in conjunction with your accountant is looking at your taxes on a consistent basis, looking at the taxes you're paying on your investments and seeing if there are ways that those can be minimized or possibly deferred. And number 10 would be, how long has your longest client been with you and how many clients do you advise? And this is an important one because you can find out how long your advisor has been working with clients. In my case, I've been licensed as a financial advisor since September of 2001. So I have some clients that have been with me from the very beginning for 19 years now, almost 20 years. And I manage roughly 100 households that I actively advise. And that is a manageable number, and I'm still taking on active clients at this point. And if you find that your advisor is managing, let's say, 500 households, right, totally on their own, that might be a few too many clients than they can adequately serve. So probably every individual advisor is maybe only capable of serving 150 to 200 clients, and at that point, they would need another advisor helping them to actually deal with those clients. Another thing that is not in the top 10 that I think is very important is that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? One of the things that Bernie Madoff was promising his clients is a 10% consistent return. And a 10% return would be wonderful. But if you look back over the history of the stock market, having a 10% return on a consistent basis is almost impossible. There are definitely periods of time where the stock market has averaged 10%, but there are many times that it has averaged less than that. So if someone's promising you a very high return, or if they're promising you even a moderate return with no risk, you really have to understand that, because really the only investments that have no risk are, certificates of deposit, savings account, money markets. And as we know, those right now are paying very little, less than 1%. So if somebody's promising you an investment that has a much higher return than that with no risk, your antennas should definitely go up, because that is probably not likely. And they're most likely taking additional risk to generate that no risk return from you. So I hope this has been helpful to ask these questions, anytime you're hiring a new advisor, and even possibly going back to your existing advisor and asking, him or her those questions. And if you don't like some of the answers to these questions and you haven't been happy, then maybe it's time to seek out somebody who would give you better answers to these questions. As I mentioned on last week's podcast, our series of retirement planning classes is starting up again. I'm offering some classes, and both sessions are all going to be online via webinar, most likely on Zoom. The first class starts October 6th. They're a 2-night class. They start at 6:15 and go roughly to 9:15. And you have 4 opportunities to take the class. It'll be offered for 4 different sessions through 2 different adult education curriculums that I participate in. If you go to my website, retirewithryan.com, on the homepage under retirement workshops, you can find a link to them. And if you haven't attended one of these courses in a while, or you're thinking about retirement planning and you're unsure as to how to approach it, these courses are a great way for you to increase your knowledge about what you should be doing in advance of retiring. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great week.
You should consult a financial advisor familiar with your specific circumstances before you make any financial decisions. Nothing in this broadcast constitutes a solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Any mention of rates of return are historical or hypothetical in nature and are not a guarantee of future returns. Ryan Morrissey, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Morrissey Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor.